It's simple. It's all about puzzles. Here's one for you. This plus 2 equals 5. We just have to find the number in this box. Which number, when added to 2, gives us 5? Simple. It's 3. We can say that 3 plus 2 equals 5. This thing we see here contains only numbers. This puzzle can also be asked in a different way. We can say that x plus 2 equals 5, find x. We just used a letter in place of the box. These letters are also called as variables. Sometimes also referred to as the unknown since its values is not known to us. This is algebra. It deals with variables and unknowns and we are expected to find their value. But why use variables? Why not boxes like these? Let's assume there are 3 unknown numbers. Using shapes, we can write it as a square plus a slant square plus an empty circle plus 4 equals 7. You had to think of different shapes. Using variables, we can write it as x plus y plus z plus 4 equals 7. This was a little more convenient as compared to the previous case. But what's the real advantage of using variables? Read this short story and the question that follows. Your friend had a few chocolates with him. A bully came across, took away 5 of his chocolates, and then he had just 7 chocolates remaining with him. How many chocolates did he have before the bully came to him? This question has 40 words. Let's see if it can shorten the question a bit. Assume your friend had X chocolates with him. The bully took away 5 of his chocolates. So we subtract 5 from X. And after all this, your friend was left with 7 chocolates. This entire thing will then equal 7. Now all we have to do is find X. This entire question of 40 words can be written like this. So yes, algebra makes life simple. In the previous video, we have seen how algebra makes our life very easy. It helps us write long phrases in a very short way using variables. That's the beauty of algebra. How do we write the sum of 3 and 7 using numbers? We just write it as 3 plus 7. Let me modify the question a bit. How do we write the sum of a number and 7? Since this number is unknown, we use a variable in its place and write it as x plus 7. Both these are called expressions. As this involves only numbers, it's called a numerical expression. And because it involves variables, it's called an algebraic expression. Now look at this line. Sum of a number and 7 equals 12. Now it gets interesting. Let's break it into parts. Sum of a number and 7. It can be written as x plus 7 equals 12 can be written as equal to 12. We wrote this phrase as x plus 7 equals 12. Is this an expression? No, that's not the case. This is called an equation since it has an equal to sign. It's called so because we are equating two sides, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. What are the different parts of an equation? This is called the variable. That is, we are expected to find. And these two numbers are called constants as their value remains constant. There are also operators like addition and subtraction. So these are the important parts of an equation. Remember, the equal to sign divides the equation into two sides, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. We saw that plus and minus separate the terms and multiplication and division do not separate the terms of an expression. Let's look at a few expressions and find out how many terms they have. Here's the first expression, 4 plus x. We can see a plus sign here. it means that this expression has two terms, 4 and x. Here's the second expression, 7 minus x minus y. We have two minus signs here. It means that this expression has three terms, 7, x and y. Remember, plus and minus separate the terms. What about 7x divided by y? This expression involves multiplication and division. And as we know, they do not separate the terms. This is just one term. What is 7 in this case? It's called the coefficient of x by y, the coefficient of this. How many terms do you think are present in 4x minus y plus 7? This is interesting. 4x is just one term since it involves multiplication. Y and 7 are the other terms which are separated by a minus and a plus sign. So this expression has three terms in all, 4x, y and 7. What about 7xy plus 20y minus 3z plus 8? One term, 2, 3 and 4. 4 terms in all. Each of these is one term. Here's the last expression, 8xyz. Since it involves only multiplication, this is just one single term. Even though there are three variables and a constant, this is a single term. Before we see the types of terms, we need to understand the concept of the power of variables. Let's consider two different terms. The first term is 7xy and the second one is 17x cubed y squared. Observe the first term. It has two variables, x and y. What is the power of each of these variables? The power of x is 1 and the power of y as well is 1. Now look at the powers of variables of the second term. The power of x is 3 and the power of y is 2. Both these terms have the same variables, x and y, but the powers of each of the variables are different. Let's erase this and jump to the concept of the types of terms. There are two kinds of terms, like terms and unlike terms. What is the difference between them? Two terms are like if they have the same variables with the same powers. Don't worry, we will understand this with examples. When are they unlike then? Two terms are unlike if they have different variables or same variables with different powers. Let's zoom out and understand a couple of examples. Consider two terms, say 7xy and 15xy. Are these two terms like or unlike? Remember, to know the type, we just have to look at the variables and not the constants. Both these terms have the same variables, x and y. But that is not enough to tell us if they are like or unlike. The next thing we need to compare is the power of each variable. The powers of x are the same in each term, it's 1. And yes, the powers of y in each term is also 1. As both these conditions are satisfied, we can say that they are like terms. Same variables and same powers of each variable. What about 3x squared y and 3xy cubed? Are they like or unlike? Both the terms have the same variables, x and y. Now let's compare the powers of each of the variables. Let's look at the power of x first. In the first term, it's 2, and in the second, it's 1. It's not the same. Even though the variables are the same, because the powers are not equal, these are unlike terms. Observe that we do not bother to check the powers of y in each case. Remember, if the powers of one of the variables is different, the terms become unlike. What about 8xyz and 8xy? The first term has three variables, x, y, and z, and the second term has just x and y. It does not have z. Both the terms have different variables. Hence, they are unlike. Just remember these two things and you would have no problem understanding the types of terms. We will look at an extremely important concept related to polynomials. Think about it. There can actually be just two broad categories of polynomials. The first category, which has just one variable, and the second one, which has more than one variable. That's it. These are the only two possibilities. An example of the first type would be 6x raised to 5 plus 2x squared minus 7x plus 9. This polynomial has just one variable, which is x. An example of the second type would be 5xy cubed plus 17xy plus 9y squared plus 9. This has two variables, x and y, which makes it fall into the second category. So what about these two categories? Why did we form them? It is for the concept we will look at in this video, the degree of the polynomial. In the first category, where we have just one variable, the degree is the largest exponent of that variable. Here, 5 is the largest exponent, which tells us that the degree is 5. The degree of this polynomial is 5. Let's look at a second example in this category. 21x plus 6x cubed plus 7 plus x squared. In the first term, the degree of x is 1. In the second term, the degree of x is 3. And in the last term, it's 2. 3 becomes the largest exponent of the variable. And that's why the degree of this polynomial is 3. Is it any different in the second case? Yes, slightly different. In the second case, for each term, we add the exponents of each variable in it. How will it work out for the first example? Remember, we have to look at each term individually. Consider the first term, 5xy cubed. We had to add the exponents of each variable in it. The exponent of x is 1 and the exponent of y is 3. So for the first term, we consider the power to be 1 plus 3, which is 4. Now we come to the second term. There are two variables, x and y, and each of them have an exponent equal to 1. Adding the exponents, we consider the exponent of this term to be 1 plus 1, which equals 2. In the third term, we have just one variable. Its exponent will just be 2. And as we have no variables in the last term, its exponent will be 0. Remember, we are looking at exponents of variables. The exponent of variables of the last term is 0. And the largest of these becomes the degree. The degree of this polynomial is 4, which is the highest amongst these. Here's our last example. 7xz plus 10 plus 3z cubed y plus 19y raised to 4. We have 4 terms here. In the first term, the sum of exponents of x and z is 2. In the second case, since we have no variables, the exponent is 0. In the third term, it's 3 plus 1, which equals 4. And in the fourth term as well, the exponent is 4. 4 is the highest amongst these 4 terms. Hence, the degree of this polynomial is 4. To understand what factors of polynomials are and how they can be used, we need to understand the basics of factorization first. We start with simple numbers. How do we find the factors of the number 6? To find the factors of 6, ask yourself, how can we write 6 as a product of two numbers? We can write 6 as 1 multiplied by 6 and also 2 multiplied by 3. Is there any other combination you can think of? No, there isn't any. So the factors of 6 are these 4 numbers: 1, 2, 3 and 6. 1 is a factor of 6 since there is some natural number that it can be multiplied with to get the original number. Similarly, 2, 3 and 6 are also factors. But the number 4 is not a factor of 6 because it cannot be multiplied with a natural number to get a 6. Let us also try finding factors for the number 8. 8 can be written as 1 multiplied by 8 and 2 multiplied by 4. There is no other combination of the two numbers which gives us 8. So the factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4 and 8. This can also be seen in a different way. If we divide a number by any of its factors, the remainder will always be 0. If you divide 6 by 3, you will get 2 as the quotient. If you divide 6 by 1, you will get 6 as the quotient. If you divide 8 by 2, you will get 4 as the quotient. In all the cases, the remainder is 0. How does this help us? What if we want to know whether a number is a factor of another number or not? For example, if we want to know whether 8 is a factor of 216, what would you do? This is where division helps us. If you want to know whether 8 is a factor of 216, all we need to do is divide 216 by 8. After the division, if we get the remainder as 0, we can say that 8 is a factor of 216. So let us divide 216 by 8. Yes, the traditional way where we write 216 like this and 8 next to it. After solving, we get the quotient as 27 and the remainder as 0. As the remainder is 0, we can say that 8 is a factor of 216. We can write 216 as 8 multiplied by 27. What else can we say after looking at this process? Is 27 a factor of 216? Yes, as we can write 216 as 8 multiplied by 27, 27 is also a factor of 216. Remember, 8 and 27 are two of the many factors of 216. This division just helps us to know if 8 is a factor of 216 or not. And if we find out that the divisor is a factor, then the quotient as well has to be a factor. Let's see if 9 is a factor of 216. We will have to divide 216 by 9. So after we finish our division process, we see that the remainder is 0. So 9 is a factor of 216. And since 216 can also be written as 9 multiplied by 24, 24 is also a factor of 216. In the process of finding out if 8 and 9 are factors of 216, we also found out two more factors of 216, 27 and 24. What about 10? Is it a factor of 216? To find out, we divide 216 by 10. In this case, we get the remainder as 6. As it's not 0, we can say that 10 is not a factor of 216. We can also conclude that 21 is not a factor of 216. Remember, if the remainder is 0, the divisor and the quotient are both factors of the dividend. And to understand how special identities can be used to factorize polynomials, let me write them down for you. The first one says a plus b the whole squared equals a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. The second one says a minus b the whole squared equals a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. How do we use these identities to factorize polynomials? Look at this example. 9m squared plus 12m plus 4. Can we factorize this expression further? One way in which we can do it is to find the highest common factor of the three terms. But if you observe carefully, the HCF of the terms is 1. Is there any other way to factorize the polynomial? The first term is 9m squared. We can also write it as 3m the whole squared. The third term in the polynomial is 4. It can be written as 2 squared. We basically wrote the first and the last term in whole squared terms. Why are we doing this? This is our first identity. A plus b the whole squared equals a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. We got the first and the last terms in this form. Now we look at the middle term. How can we write 12m? Can it be written in terms of the first and last term and in this form? Yes, we can write it as 2 multiplied by 3m multiplied by 2. Observe how we split the middle term. We made sure that these two terms are present and the factor of 2 is also present. So we rewrite the polynomial as 3m the whole squared plus 2 multiplied by 3m multiplied by 2 plus 2 squared. Does this expression look familiar to you? Look at the first identity. Our expression looks exactly like the right-hand side of the identity, where a would be 3m and b would be 2. So a plus b the whole squared is equivalent to 3m plus 2 the whole squared. 9m squared plus 12m plus 4 can be written as 3m plus 2 the whole squared. We could successfully factorize this expression using the first identity. The question is, how do we know that the first identity has to be used? It's simple. Look at the first and the third terms. They have 9 and 4. Both can be written in squared form. And the sign of the middle term is positive. So the moment you see such terms, remember that the chances of using the first identity are very high. And if the middle term was negative, we would have used the second identity. Now that we are done with the factorization, we should check our answer. We solve the factorized expression and see if we get the original expression. 3m plus 2 the whole squared can be written as 3m plus 2 multiplied by 3m plus 2. And we use the distributive property to expand the brackets. We multiplied this with this and this with this. We get 9m squared plus 6m plus 6m plus 4. We add the like terms to get 9m squared plus 12m plus 4, which is our original expression. Our answer is correct. 9m squared plus 12m plus 4 can be written as 3m plus 2 the whole squared.